The stars were quiet that night. They always were in this part of space. The cargo ship Dawn Runner drifted slowly through the darkness, carrying medical supplies to a small colony 3 systems away. It was a simple job, easy money, nothing dangerous. At least that was what the crew believed. Sat in the small kitchen area drinking cheap coffee from a metal cup. She was 23 years old with dark hair tied back and calm brown eyes that rarely showed emotion. She had worked on cargo ships for 4 years now. The pay was bad. The food was worse. But she liked the silence of space. It gave her time to think. The ship only had 5 crew members. Was the engineer, a tall man in his 30s who could fix anything with enough time and tape. Was the medical officer, a quiet woman who read old books in her spare time. The captain was an older man named, and his co-pilot was a young guy named who talked too much. They were nobodies, just regular people trying to make a living among the stars. The alarm changed everything. It started as a soft beeping sound. Then it grew louder. Red lights flashed in the corridor. Put down her coffee and moved quickly to the bridge. When she arrived, Captain was staring at the main screen with a pale face. A massive ship hung in the darkness before them. It was at least 50 times bigger than the Dawn Runner. Its hull was smooth and silver, shaped like a curved blade. Strange symbols glowed along its surface in pale blue light. "What is that?" whispered. Nobody answered. They all knew. They had heard stories, seen pictures in news reports. This was a warship. They were one of the oldest species in the known galaxy. They had pale blue skin, 4 arms, and large dark eyes. They considered themselves superior to all other races. To them, humans were new, young, unimportant, just another primitive species crawling out of their home planet. The communication system crackled. A cold voice spoke in broken but clear human language. "Human vessel, you will power down your engines. You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in immediate destruction." Captain looked at his crew. There was no choice. Their ship had no weapons, no shields. They were a cargo vessel facing a warship. He pressed the communication button. "We surrender. Please don't hurt my crew." The line went dead. 15 minutes later, the soldiers came aboard. They were tall and thin, moving with a strange grace that made them look like they were dancing. Their 4 arms held weapons that hummed with energy. They wore silver armor that reflected the ship's dim lights. The crew was forced to kneel in the cargo bay, kept her eyes down, watching the soldiers' feet as they moved around her. She noticed how they walked, light steps, careful movements. These were not heavy creatures. They were built for a different world than Earth. One of the soldiers grabbed by the hair and pulled him up. "This one talks too much," the soldier said, as if he had been listening to their communications. "Perhaps we cut out his tongue." His face went white with fear. "Leave him alone," said his voice low but firm. The soldier turned and struck across the face with one of his 4 hands. Fell back but did not cry out. He simply wiped the blood from his lip and stared at the soldier with hard eyes. The soldier seemed confused by this. He had expected screaming, begging. Instead, he got silence. A new voice echoed through the cargo bay. "Enough." The soldiers stepped aside as their commander walked in. He was taller than the others, with darker blue skin and golden symbols painted on his armor. His 4 arms were clasped behind his back, and he moved with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. This was Commander. He looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects, curious perhaps, but not impressed. "5 of them," he said to one of his officers, "hardly worth the fuel it took to stop." He walked slowly past the kneeling crew, studying each one. When he reached, he stopped. She had a small cut on her arm from when the soldiers had grabbed her. Blood ran down to her wrist in a thin red line. Leaned down and looked at the wound. "You bleed so easily," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Red blood, how primitive, how fragile." Did not respond. She kept her eyes forward, her breathing steady. Straightened up and addressed his soldiers. "Take them to the holding cells. We will question them later. Perhaps they know something useful about human military positions." He paused and smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. "Or perhaps we will simply learn how much pain these creatures can take before they break." The soldiers laughed. Was pulled to her feet and pushed toward the exit. As she walked, she glanced back at the cargo bay. Everything they had worked for, everything they owned, it would all be taken or destroyed. But she did not feel despair. She felt something else, something quiet and cold that lived deep inside her chest. The thought they had captured prey. They thought humans were weak because they bled, because they felt pain, because they came from a heavy, violent, poisonous world that should have killed them long ago. They did not understand. Earth did not make weak creatures. Earth made survivors. The holding cells were small and cold. Energy barriers hummed across the doorways, preventing escape. Was placed in a cell alone. Through the barrier, she could see in the cell across from her, was somewhere to her right. Captain and were taken somewhere else, did not know where. She sat on the hard floor and closed her eyes. Her arm still bled slowly, but she ignored it. Pain was familiar. Pain was an old friend. On Earth, she had broken bones, torn muscles, and survived fevers that would kill most species in the galaxy. This was nothing. Hours passed. The ship hummed around her. She could feel it moving through space, taking her further from home. A guard walked past her cell and looked at her with disgust. "Sleep while you can, human," he said. "Tomorrow, the commander will have questions for you, and he does not like waiting for answers." Opened her eyes and looked at the guard. Her face showed nothing. No fear, no anger, just patience. The guard felt a strange chill run down his spine. He did not know why. He told himself it was nothing and walked away quickly. In her cell, smiled very slightly. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning came without warning. There was no sunrise in space, no birds singing, just the sudden bright lights turning on and the sound of heavy boots walking down the corridor. Woke instantly. She had trained herself to sleep lightly. On Earth, in the mountains where she grew up, you learned to wake at the smallest sound, a breaking twig, a distant growl. Sleep was rest, but awareness meant survival. The energy barrier on her cell flickered and died. 2 soldiers stood in the doorway. "Get up," one of them said. "The commander wants to see you." Stood slowly. She did not rush. She did not show fear. The soldiers grabbed her arms and pushed her forward. She let them for now. They walked through long silver corridors. The ship was beautiful in a cold way. Everything was smooth and clean. No sharp corners, no rough edges. It was a ship built by people who had never known struggle, never known dirt or blood or desperation. Memorized every turn, every door, every camera. Her eyes moved constantly, taking in information while her face remained blank. The bridge of the eternal silence was large and circular. Huge windows showed the stars outside. Dozens of officers sat at control stations, their 4 hands moving across glowing screens. In the center, on a raised platform, stood Commander. He had changed his armor. This one was pure white with gold edges. It was meant to impress, to show power and status. Was not impressed. And were already there, standing before the platform with their hands bound. Had a dark bruise on his face from the soldier's strike yesterday. Stood straight and calm, her eyes watching everything. Smiled when he saw, "Ah, the quiet one, good, now we can begin." He walked down from his platform, his 4 arms folded in various positions that seemed to show confidence. Around the bridge, officers stopped their work to watch. This was entertainment for them, a chance to see primitive creatures suffer. "I have questions," said, circling the 3 humans slowly. "Your ship's computer was damaged in the capture. Most of your data was lost. Very unfortunate, so now I must ask you directly." He stopped in front of, "You are the engineer. Tell me about human military ships, their weapons, their weaknesses. Looked at him with steady eyes. I fix cargo ship engines. I don't know anything about military vessels. Tilted his head. I do not believe you. He raised one of his hands and gestured to an officer nearby. The officer brought forward a small device that looked like a metal bracelet. He attached it to his arm. This is a pain inducer, explained, his voice casual and light. It stimulates the nerve endings directly, very effective on most species. The maximum setting can make a prisoner tell us anything within seconds. He pressed a button on his wrist. His body went rigid, his jaw clenched, sweat appeared on his forehead, but he did not scream, he did not fall. He stood there, muscles tight, breathing hard through his nose. The officers leaned forward, confused. Frowned, interesting. He turned up the setting. Made a small sound in his throat, his hands shook, but still he remained standing. Still he did not beg. Is it broken? One of the officers asked. Check the device. No, it is functioning perfectly. He looked at with new interest. This setting would have a weeping on the floor, yet you stand. How? Managed to smile through the pain. I broke my leg once, hiking in the mountains, set the bone myself with 2 sticks and some cloth, walked 12 kilometers to find help. He laughed, though it came out rough and strained. This feels like a bad headache. Turned off the device. The bridge was completely silent. Spoke up, her voice calm and clear. Humans experience pain differently than most species. Our ancestors lived with it constantly. It was part of daily life. We learned to endure it, to push through it, to keep going when everything told us to stop. Stared at her, then he turned too. And what about you, quiet one? Are you as resistant as your friends? Said nothing, she simply waited. Attached the pain inducer to her arm himself. He set it to the maximum setting designed for prisoners. Then he activated it. The pain was real. Felt it burning through her nerves like fire. Every part of her body screamed at her to fall down, to cry out, to make it stop. But she had felt worse. She thought about the time she was 15. A fever had gripped her body for 5 days. Her temperature had risen so high that her mother feared brain damage. She had survived. She thought about the car accident when she was 19, 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung. She had stayed awake through the whole surgery because the anesthesia had not worked properly. She had felt every cut, every stitch. She thought about childbirth. She had never experienced it herself, but her mother had told her stories. 12 hours of agony, blood and screaming and pain beyond description. And then, at the end, joy. Humans were built by pain, shaped by it. They did not fear it, they respected it, and they had learned over millions of years to keep going anyway. Straightened her back. She took a slow breath, and she looked directly into Commander's eyes. On Earth, she said, her voice steady, this would be called a mild inconvenience. Stepped backward. He actually stepped backward. His officers were completely silent, their dark eyes wide with something that might have been fear. Smiled slightly. Human women endure something called childbirth. Many do it without any medication. Compared to that, Commander, your little machine is a toy. Turned off the device. His hand was shaking very slightly. He tried to hide it but saw. Return them to their cells, he ordered, his voice no longer smooth and confident. I need to review our information on their species. The soldiers came forward and grabbed the humans. As was led away, she glanced back at. He was standing very still, staring at nothing. Good, she thought. Now you're starting to understand. Back in her cell, sat down and examined her arm. The skin was red where the device had been attached, but there was no real damage, just marks, just memory. Pain was a teacher. That was what her grandmother had always said. It shows you where you are weak and it makes you stronger. Never hate your pain. Learn from it. His voice came from across the corridor. You okay? Fine, replied, you. I've had worse hangovers. Laughed softly from her cell. The look on his face when you didn't scream, I wish I had recorded it. Allowed herself a small smile, but her mind was already working, planning. They were scared now. They did not understand what they had captured. That fear would make them dangerous, unpredictable. She needed to move fast. Tonight, she decided, tonight we begin. She closed her eyes and started planning. Commander could not sleep. He lay in his private quarters staring at the ceiling. The room was large and comfortable. Soft lights glowed along the walls. The temperature was perfect. Everything was exactly as it should be. But he could not stop thinking about the humans. The pain inducer had failed, not because it was broken, not because of a technical problem. It had failed because the humans simply did not respond to pain the way they should have. Had used that device on dozens of species. Warriors from the Empire had broken within minutes. Assassins from the Shadow Worlds had told every secret they possessed. Even other, trained soldiers who had endured years of conditioning eventually fell before that terrible machine. But a human woman had looked at him and called it a mild inconvenience. He got up and walked to his personal terminal. He sat down and began searching the ship's database for information about Earth. What he found made his blood run cold. Earth was classified as a Class 7. He had seen that classification before, but he had never really understood what it meant. Now, reading through report after report, he began to comprehend the horror. Earth's gravity was 1.87 times the standard. Every human alive had grown up carrying nearly twice the weight that it would feel comfortable with. Their bones were dense. Their muscles were strong. They were built for crushing pressure. The planet had a toxic atmosphere filled with a corrosive gas called oxygen. This same oxygen existed in their blood, carried by a metal called iron. They breathed poison. They were made of poison. Scrolled through images of Earth's surface. He saw massive bodies of water that could swallow entire cities. He saw mountains that reached into the clouds. He saw storms that spun across continents, destroying everything in their path. And the creatures, millions and millions of species all fighting to survive, predators with sharp teeth and claws, insects that spread disease, plants that produced poison. Everything on Earth seemed designed to kill. But the humans did not hide from these dangers. They hunted the predators. They domesticated the animals. They built cities in the paths of hurricanes and rebuilt them when they were destroyed. They climbed the mountains for fun. Found a section about human history and began reading. His hands started shaking again. Humans had been at war with each other almost constantly since they developed the ability to make weapons. They had killed millions of their own kind in conflicts over land, resources, ideas, and sometimes nothing at all. They had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in a single flash. They had created poisons that could kill every living thing on a battlefield. And then, after creating these terrible tools of destruction, they had turned around and built hospitals, schools, art museums. They wrote poetry about the beauty of flowers and then went back to killing each other the next day. They made no sense. They were chaos in living form. One entry caught his attention. It was about something called persistence hunting. Read it 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. Humans in their early history had hunted prey by simply following it, not chasing, not running, just walking after it for hours, for days, until the prey, exhausted and broken, could no longer move. Then the humans would catch up and kill it. They had won not through speed or strength but through patience, through endurance, through the simple refusal to stop. Sat back in his chair, his mouth was dry. There was a knock at his door. "Enter," he said, his voice weak. His first officer stepped inside, was shorter than with pale green markings on his blue skin. He had served under for 7 years. They had fought together, won together, had never seen his commander look afraid. Until now. Commander, the crew is asking about the humans. They want to know when the executions will be scheduled. Did not answer immediately. He turned his terminal screen toward, read this. Moved closer and began reading. As his eyes scanned the text, his antennae slowly flattened against his skull. This was a sign of deep fear. This cannot be accurate, whispered. They breathe oxygen, they drink monoxide. These are industrial chemicals. They drink it for pleasure, said. They also consume a substance called alcohol, which is literally a poison that affects their brain function. They do this recreationally, for fun. Took a step back from the screen. Commander, what have we captured? I do not know, stood and walked to his window. Stars drifted past slowly. I thought they were primitives, weak creatures from a dangerous world who were lucky to survive, but now I think I was wrong. He turned to face. Their world did not make them weak. Their world made them strong. Every danger, every poison, every predator they faced became a lesson. They evolved to survive anything. Then what do we do? Thought for a long moment. We need to be careful, very careful. These creatures are more dangerous than anything we have faced before. They feel pain but do not submit to it. They face death but do not fear it. They endure. He walked back to his terminal and pulled up another file. This one was about human psychology. Look at this, he said. When humans are threatened, they experience something called an adrenaline response. Their bodies produce chemicals that make them faster and stronger. Their senses sharpen. Their pain tolerance increases. They become better at fighting exactly when they need to fight. Read the passage with growing horror. They become more dangerous when cornered. Yes, the more we threaten them, the more capable they become of fighting back. Then perhaps we should release them, claim it was a mistake. Shook his head. We cannot show weakness. The Empire would never forgive such a failure. No, we must complete our mission. We must interrogate them and learn what we can about human military capabilities. He paused, thinking. But we will not use pain, it clearly does not work. We will try different methods. Isolation, sleep deprivation, perhaps simple conversation. And if those methods fail? Was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Then we will send them to Imperial Command and let someone else deal with them. This is beyond my experience. Nodded slowly. I will inform the crew to treat the prisoners with caution. Yes, and tell them not to mock the humans anymore, not to call them weak or primitive. Looked at the image of Earth still displayed on his screen. A beautiful planet, blue and green and white, so pretty from space. So deadly up close. These creatures survived that world, he said softly. They did not merely survive, they conquered it. They spread across its surface and bent it to their will. They are not prey. He turned to face his first officer with haunted eyes. They are predators, the most persistent, most adaptable, most dangerous predators the galaxy has ever produced, and we have 3 of them locked in cages on our ship. Swallowed hard. Should I increase the guards? Triple them, and make sure the energy barriers are at full strength. Turned back to the window. I want to speak with the quiet one tomorrow, alone. Perhaps I can understand them better if I approach them without aggression. Hesitated. Commander, is that wise, if they are as dangerous as you say? I will be careful, but I need to understand. I need to know what we are dealing with. After left, stayed at the window for a long time, staring at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, a tiny blue rock in a vast universe. That had produced the most terrifying species had ever encountered. And that species was spreading across the galaxy. For the first time in his long career, Commander wondered if the Empire had finally met its match. The lights dimmed at exactly the same time every night cycle, had counted, she had measured. For 3 days she had watched every pattern, every routine, every guard rotation. Now she was ready. His voice came through the darkness, barely above a whisper. The power grid fluctuates during the shift change. There is a gap of 4 seconds when the backup systems switch on. I noticed, replied, the barrier flickers. It does not turn off completely, added from her cell, but it weakens. I have been watching the light intensity. It drops by maybe 40%. Nodded though nobody could see her. This was how humans worked. They watched. They learned. They adapted. They had given them 3 days to study this ship, thinking they were helpless prisoners. They had given them all the time they needed. The guard who brings food said, "He has a limp, old injury. He favors his right side." "His weapon is on his left hip," observed. "Difficult for him to draw quickly." "The patrol passes this corridor every 20 minutes, said. "But there is a gap at the far end where they cannot see our cells. About 30 seconds. They had built a complete picture of the enemy, their strengths, their weaknesses, their patterns. This was what humans did. This was how their ancestors had survived on Earth, surrounded by predators and dangers. They observed, they planned, and then they struck. "Tonight," said, "during the shift change, I will go first." "What about Captain?" and asked. "They are being held somewhere else." "I will find them." His voice was calm but certain. "First we take control, then we search." The hours passed slowly. Did not sleep. She sat in the darkness, breathing deeply, preparing her body and mind for what was coming. On Earth, her grandmother had taught her meditation. "Focus your energy," the old woman had said. "Become still like water. Then when the time comes, move like the river." The shift change began. Heard the sound of boots walking down the corridor. New guards replacing the old ones. Voices speaking in the language. Then the flicker. The energy barrier in front of her cell pulsed and dimmed, was already moving. She pressed her hand against the barrier and pushed through the weakened field. Pain shot through her fingers, but she ignored it. Pain was just information. Pain told her she was alive and fighting. She was through. The guard with the limp was turning the corner when reached him. He did not even have time to shout. Her hand closed around his throat, finding the pressure point that her father had taught her years ago. A neck was longer than a human's, but the nervous system worked the same way. Apply pressure to the right spot and the body simply stopped working. The guard dropped without a sound. Took his weapon and his access card. She moved down the corridor like a shadow. They were faster than humans. They could run quicker and react sooner, but they were not quiet. Their movements made sound. Their armor rattled softly. Made no sound at all. She disabled the barriers on cell, thens. They emerged into the corridor with determined faces. "Engineering is 3 levels down," whispered. "If I can reach it, I can control power to the whole ship." "Medical bay is on level 2, said. "There might be useful supplies, and information about where the others are being held." Nodded. "Go for engineering. Find our people. I will take the bridge." They split up without another word. No long speeches. No dramatic moments. Just 3 humans doing what needed to be done. Moved through the ship like a ghost from an old Earth story. The she encountered never saw her coming. She did not kill them. There was no need. A strike to the nerve cluster behind their ear sent them into unconsciousness. A pressure hold on their neck cut off blood flow to their brain. They dropped silently, one by one. She collected 3 more weapons and 2 more access cards. She found a map terminal and memorized the layout of the bridge. An alarm began to sound. Someone had found the unconscious guards. Red lights flashed throughout the corridor. Voices shouted commands in the distance. Did not hurry. Running would make noise. Running would waste energy. She maintained her steady pace, avoiding the rushing guards who were too panicked to look carefully. In engineering had reached the main control room. 2 technicians tried to stop him. They had never fought a human before. They did not know that humans had spent thousands of years developing ways to hurt each other. Wrestling, boxing, martial arts, an entire culture built around combat. The technicians were unconscious in seconds. His hands moved across the control panels. The language was different from human languages, but engineering was universal. Power flowed through circuits the same way everywhere in the galaxy. Energy obeyed the same laws. Within minutes, he had locked out all other control stations. Engineering secured. He whispered into the communication device he had taken from a guard. In the medical bay had found more than supplies. She had found records, prisoner locations, ship manifests, and something else. Something that made her blood boil with quiet anger. Captain was dead. He had died during interrogation the day before. They had not even bothered to tell them. Was alive, held in a cell on the detention level. Marked the location and moved to free him. Received the news about through the communication device. She paused for just a moment, a single breath, a silent promise. Then she continued toward the bridge. The doors to the bridge were sealed, heavy metal, reinforced, designed to keep intruders out during emergencies. Placed a charge she had assembled from components taken from weapons. It was a rough device, simple, but it would work. The explosion echoed through the corridor. The doors buckled and fell inward. Commander turned from his command chair as walked onto the bridge. She was carrying a modified pulse rifle. Her clothes were torn. Burn marks covered her arms from pushing through the energy barrier. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. But her eyes were calm, steady, patient. The officers froze at their stations, reached for his sidearm. Fired once. The shot hit his weapon and sent it spinning across the floor. "Do not move," she said. Her voice was quiet, almost gentle. "I do not want to kill anyone else, but I will if you force me." Stared at her. His forearms hung at his sides. His mouth opened, but no words came out. "You mocked our pain," continued, walking closer. "You thought because we bleed, we are weak. You thought because we suffer, we will break." She stopped directly in front of his command chair. "You did not understand. Pain is how we learn. It is how we grow. Every wound makes us stronger. Every loss teaches us something new. We have been hurt by creatures far more dangerous than you, Commander, and we survived. We always survive." Behind her's voice came through the communication system. "Engineering confirms. I have full control of the ship." His voice followed. "I have. He is weak but alive, moving to the bridge now." Kept her eyes on. "Your ship now belongs to us." Finally found his voice. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You are prisoners, you are primitives, you cannot." "We can," said simply. "We did, and now you will listen very carefully to what I have to say." She raised the rifle slightly, pointing it at his chest. "Because what happens next depends entirely on you." The bridge of the eternal silence was completely still. Every officer sat frozen at their station, eyes fixed on the small human woman who had just taken control of their ship. Commander remained in his command chair, his forearms gripping the armrests so tightly that his blue skin had turned pale. Stood before him with the rifle steady in her hands. Behind her, the broken doors still smoked from the explosion. The red emergency lights painted everything in shades of blood. "You killed our captain," she said. Her voice was soft, almost kind. That made it more frightening. Shook his head quickly. "That was not my order. The interrogators acted on their own. I did not know." "But you knew it was possible. You knew what your people do to prisoners," tilted her head slightly. "You did not care." Had no answer. The door on the far side of the bridge opened. Walked in, supporting with one arm. The young man looked terrible. His face was bruised. His left eye was swollen shut. But he was alive, and that was what mattered. Behind them came, walking calmly with a weapon in each hand. He had tied his hair back with a strip of cloth. He looked like a warrior from the old Korean dramas his grandmother used to watch. "All engineering controls are locked to my voice command," reported. "Life support, weapons, engines, everything." Guided to a seat at one of the control stations. Medical records show he was interrogated 4 times. Broken ribs, internal bruising. They used the same pain inducer on him that they used on us. It worked better on him, said Weekly, managing a small smile. I screamed a lot. But you did not tell them anything, said Gently. The records show he gave them nothing useful, 4 sessions and he never broke. Looked at with something like disbelief. This young man, beaten and tortured, had somehow held out against techniques that worked on the most hardened criminals. Noticed his expression. You still do not understand. Every human you see before you has endured things that would kill your kind, not because we are special, because we are normal. This is what humans are. She lowered her rifle slightly and walked closer to the command chair. I could kill you, she said. I have the right. You attacked our ship. You took us prisoner. You killed a good man who only wanted to deliver medicine to sick people. By any standard of justice, your life is owed to us. His breathing quickened. His dark eyes were wide with fear. Please, he whispered. Please, I have a family, children. They are waiting for me on the... Studied him for a long moment. She thought about Captain, a kind man with a loud laugh and a terrible singing voice. He had talked about his sometimes, showed pictures of them on his personal screen. He had been looking forward to retirement. Now he would never see them again. The anger was there deep inside her chest, hot and sharp and demanding blood. She could feel it pushing against her control. It would be so easy to pull the trigger, so satisfying. But that was not who she was. That was not who humans had to be. I am not going to kill you, she said finally. His body sagged with relief. But you are going to do something for me, leaned closer. You are going to send a message to your empire. Nodded quickly. Anything, whatever you want. You are going to tell them what happened here, every detail. You are going to tell them about the humans who felt pain and did not break, who were outnumbered and still won. You are going to tell them that Earth is not a target. She reached out and gripped his chin with one hand, forcing him to meet her eyes. You are going to tell them that humans do not forget. We do not forgive easily, and we do not stop, ever. If your empire comes for us, we will fight, and we will win. Not because we are stronger, not because we are faster, but because we will never, ever give up. She released him and stepped back. And you are going to tell them one more thing. Swallowed hard. What? Smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a predator who had chosen to let the prey live. Tell them that the next time one of your people mocks a human's pain, we will not be as gentle as we were today. She turned to, set a course for the nearest neutral station, release their escape pods when we are in range, they can find their own way home. What about the ship? Asked. Looked around the bridge. This ship was worth more money than she would earn in 10 lifetimes. Selling it could make them all rich. But that was not the point. We leave it at the station. Let them come and collect it. Let them walk through these corridors and see what 3 humans did to their mighty warship. She turned back to, your crew will be released unharmed, all of them, even the ones who hurt our captain, even the ones who tortured, we are giving them back to you. Looked confused. Why? You could demand ransom, you could use them as hostages. Because we are not like you. His voice was quiet but firm. We do not hurt people to prove our strength. We do not enjoy causing pain. We fight when we must and we stop when the fighting is done. She paused and let that sink in. That is the difference between us, Commander. You conquered because you wanted power. We survived because we had no other choice. And survivors learn something that conquerors never understand. What? Mercy is not weakness. It is the greatest strength of all. The journey to the neutral station took 4 days. During that time, the crew was kept in their quarters, comfortable but contained. Allowed them to access food and water and medical care. She even permitted them to send messages to their families, letting them know they were alive. Watched this treatment with growing amazement. These humans had every right to hate his people, every right to seek revenge, but instead, they showed kindness. On the last night before they reached the station, requested permission to speak with. She granted it. They sat in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Had never been in this room with a human before. Had never really seen them as people. Now, sitting beside this small woman who had defeated his entire ship, he felt something he had never expected to feel. Respect. I will send the message, he said quietly. Everything you asked, I will tell them what happened here. Nodded, I know you will. But I want you to understand something. Turned to face her. The Empire will not believe me. They will think I am making excuses for my failure. They will say I was beaten by primitives because I was weak. Does that bother you? Thought about it? No, he said finally, because I know the truth, and eventually they will learn it too. He was quiet for a moment, then continued. You could have killed us all. You could have taken this ship and sold it. You could have made your whole species look at you as heroes. I am not a hero, said. I am just a cargo technician who wanted to deliver medicine to people who needed it. And that is exactly why your species will win. Raised an eyebrow. Win what? Gestured at the stars. Everything, the galaxy, the future. My people build empires through fear and violence. We take what we want and destroy what we cannot use. But you, he shook his head slowly. You build something different. You build with patience, with endurance, with the strange belief that tomorrow will be better than today. He looked at her with eyes that held no more arrogance, no more mockery, only a strange, sad understanding. We will never beat you, not in the end, because you have something we do not, something that all our weapons and ships and armies cannot match. What is that? Hope. The station appeared on the screens the next morning. The escape pods were launched, carrying the crew to safety. Was the last to leave. Before entering his pod, he turned to one final time. I will remember you, he said, until the day I die. Good, replied, remember us, and remember what we showed you. What was that? She smiled. That the strongest thing in the universe is not force. It is the will to keep going no matter what. The pod launched, was gone. Stood at the window and watched the station grow smaller as they pulled away. Beside her and stood in silence. Sat in a chair nearby, still healing but smiling. Where to now? Asked. Thought about Earth, about her grandmother's house in the mountains, about the smell of rain and the sound of birds in the morning. Home, she said, we go home. The ship turned toward the distant stars, carrying its 4 human passengers into the darkness. Behind them, a story was already beginning to spread. The story of the girl who had been captured, mocked, and tortured, who had felt pain that should have broken her, who had been told she was weak and primitive and worthless, and who had made an empire tremble. The galaxy would learn to fear humans, but more importantly, it would learn to respect them. Because they were not just survivors. They were proof that the smallest spark of will, burning in the darkest night, could never be extinguished.